Thank you everyone for your patience. So with everything being online, I think we do understand sometimes things happen, but we have to go on. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Good evening to those who are joining us from India. Good afternoon, good morning if you're joining us from different parts of the world. We have Loredana with us today on this fireside chat, and Mamta from India and Malakai from London, who would be interacting with Loredana on this topic, which is cross-border mediation, women and international security. Let me introduce you all to Malakai and Mamta. Malakai is a British civil servant and who has been recently accredited as mediator by AcIn International in the last cohort. He has a background in international relations, migration, and peace building. He has a particular interest in cross-border mediation as it helps in identifying common ground between people who are from different backgrounds in order to help them work together more effectively, consequently improving international cooperation and security. Thank you, Malakai, for being with us today. And Mamta is a law student who is pursuing her LLB from Delhi University. It is a central university based in New Delhi, India. She has a keen interest in alternative dispute resolution. She has also been interning with us to explore how mediation and conflict resolution and restorative justice work. And especially she's interested in mediation, which bring her here to have a chat with Loredana. Over to Mamta. If she want, please introduce Loredana to our participants.
Thank you, ma'am. Loredana Teodorescu, PhD, is an expert on international affairs and EU, with a specific focus on EU migration policy, the link between internal security and foreign policy, gender in international relations, and women, peace and security. She is the president of the Italian chapter of Women in International Security, the premium global organization dedicated to advancing the leadership and professional development of women in the field of international relations, peace and security, and the head of Mediterranean Women Mediator Network, an initiative launched by Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2017 and implemented by Women in International Security Italy and IAI, and she currently managing the Secretariat of the Global Alliance of Regional Women Mediator Network. Additionally, she is the head of EU and International Affairs at Istituto Luigi Sturzo, a Rome-based foundation, a research associate of the Wilfried Martins Center for European Studies in Brussels, a senior fellow at Istituto Affari Internationally and at Women in International Security Global in Washington. An author of Her and EU podcast, she is a part of numerous network of experts, including the Fundamental Rights Platform of European Fundamental Rights Agency and Consultative Forum of European Asylum Agency. She delivers lectures at different universities and she advises foundations and institutions such as Extraordinary Commission on Human Rights of Italian Senate.
Thank you.
We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you for the brilliant introduction, Mamta. Now, I would like to invite Loredana for making her introductory comments and telling us a bit about her profile in her area of work. And then we will start with the questions in Fireside Chat, Loredana. So over to you.
So thank you very much. First of all, I'm really glad to be today with you. And I think it's a very nice opportunity to have this kind of chat and have also an exchange with you. I know that you all have different backgrounds, are coming from different countries. So I think that this is really enriching our exchange today. Mamta already anticipated a lot of my background. So let me maybe focus on the two experiences that are more relevant to you probably today in our discussion. So first of all, I'm the president of the Italian chapter of Women in International Security, which is this global network focused on the leadership and the professional development of women in the field of international relations, peace and security. So this is a network which was founded in the 80s in the United States. It was founded by a group of women working in the international affairs, peace and security. At the time, even more than now, women working in this particular field were not so many. And this is why they decided to create a sort of safe space, first of all, to share the experience and the challenges, and so let's say empower each other through the network, but at the same time to find the ways to promote the participation of more women in this particular field. Why women? Because, as I was saying, we are focusing on women because women are still underrepresented in this field, in foreign policy, in peace and security, which are traditionally men-dominated fields for different reasons. I mean, we still have women underrepresented in the job market. But if you look at foreign policy, peace and security, this is very much linked, for instance, to politics. This is very much linked to international affairs, which means also traveling, mobility, not so easy maybe to conciliate with the family life. And then in politics, we know that again, we have a majority of men. So I think that different biases and stereotypes are reflected when we look at women in the international arena, and this is why we feel the need to work in this particular field to advance the participation and the leadership of women. The Women, Peace and Security Agenda is a pillar of our work. This is, I will just mention this briefly, but I think it makes the sense of our discussion. The Women, Peace and Security Agenda was started with a resolution adopted by the Security Council of the United Nations in the 2000, Resolution 1325. And this is a way to recognize the role of women in conflicts and in peace. I mean, looking at women in conflicts not only as victims, but also as actors of change. So looking at women as agents who can really bring a contribution to peace and security worldwide. And maybe I can come back to this later in our discussion, but what is important for us, it's the fact that this resolution and the Women, Peace and Security Agenda puts the focus on, first of all, women as actors of change, and then on the need to have more women, so on the need to have more women participating in all the phases of peace and security. And of course, mediation is an important part of this discussion, which means bringing more women at the tables, having more women mediating, but also having more women bringing a gender perspective in the whole mediation processes. In our network, we are convinced that foreign policy and peace and security need women. They need their expertise, their views. So we need really to bring women perspectives and competencies in order to try to bring new ideas and to try to face the current challenges, which are complex and need, let's say, complex solutions, complex answers. But here, what I would like to bring is also my experience related to the Women Mediators Network. I'm at the moment leading the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network. This is an important initiative which was launched by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs already in 2017. And then since then, so we were involved in the launching process, and since then we've been implementing this important initiative as WISE Italy, together with the Istituto Affari Internazionali, which is a research center. And in the last 3 years, in this capacity, I'm also coordinating the Global Alliance of Regional Women Mediators Network, because we are not the only regional Women Mediator Network which was launched in the last years. I mean, in the last 7 years, different networks of women mediators have been created in different parts of the world. And together we decided to launch a global alliance in 2019 with the idea to spread, let's say, our message, join our forces and amplify, let's say, the message that we want to bring, which is, first of all, let's say, focus on mediation, which means trying to solve conflicts in a peaceful way, but also try to, and more specifically, mostly try to prevent conflicts before they even start, which is related to this concept of preventive diplomacy. but at the same time try to react to manage the crisis through mediation. And at the same time, let's say the second part of these networks is of course focused on women, which means the contribution women can bring to the table to peace and security, and the added value of women mediators. So I think that here the aspects related to my experience, which I would like to highlight, are three. Let's say the presence of women mediators at formal peace tables, the contribution of women to the peace processes, and then let's say the role of networks. And I can maybe try to touch very briefly upon these three aspects, and then we can further elaborate all of these during our conversation, also based on your, let's say, curiosity and questions. But first of all, why we are talking about women mediators, women at peace tables, and why we felt the necessity to focus on this area. Because as I was saying at the beginning, numbers of women at peace tables, at formal peace tables, are not encouraging. So if we look at the formal peace tables, what we call track one, we are talking mainly about 6% of women mediators, 13% of women negotiators, and 6% of women signatory of peace agreements. I mean, the numbers are really, really low. And these are numbers developed by the UN, so they are official numbers, which are referring to the last 2 decades. So numbers are incredibly low, and what it's important to have in mind is that this is an issue which really affects all of us, because in the end, this is undermining our efforts to have more peaceful and more secure society. So it's not just an issue of gender balance or of justice, of human rights. Of course, these aspects are all important, but I think that this is, of course, first of all, an issue of inclusion. So I mean, what we really need to have secure and peaceful societies is to really bring to the table the different perspectives, the different needs, the different views, and we need to take these into consideration for the future of our societies. And having women at the table really allows us to reflect and embrace the diversity of our society. So once we have an agreement, the agreement really reflects the collective aspirations of our societies. And then we also know that having women at the peace tables has a broader effect, because it has a direct correlation with the sustainability of the peace agreements. So when women are involved, peace agreements are more likely to be reached, first of all, and are more likely to last longer. So we have the 35% of possibilities to have a peace agreement lasting at least 15 years. So this means really that when you have women, since the agreement reflects the aspiration of a broader part of the society, it has the possibility to last longer, and so it has a direct effect on peace and security of our societies. And then, of course, it's also an issue of democracy itself. I mean, it means that the consensus is reached, also dealing with different voices and bringing at the table different talents and different competencies. But while on one side, the space for women to participate in high-level peace processes is still very low. What I would like to highlight here, and this is the second aspect, is the fact that women at the same time are still contributing meaningfully to create the basis for peace and for stability in the different regions of the world. So even if they are absent from the tables where decisions are taken, at the same time, women are giving their contribution, and I would say that they are not really absent; they are rather invisible. They can always be found, even if not always seen, at the forefront of local conflict, for instance, and violent prevention. So they work mainly besides the formal tables. They facilitate dialogues, they create the premises for peace, they build bridges, they build connections, they work with the grassroots civil society, with networks of other women. They work in order to restore the international order in which peace prevails. They are already doing a lot in order to contribute to peace and to stability, but their work is often neglected. And so we feel that the role of these women needs to be recognized, needs to be highlighted, together with the expertise and the knowledge, the experience these women can really bring and can really be beneficial for our, for instance, peace, mediation and negotiations efforts. Some of these women are therefore part of the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network, which, as I was saying, is an initiative which is really, which clearly recognized, first of all, the importance of mediation, but at the same time, it really recognizes the role women can play for the stability and the sustainability of the peace in their region. The Mediterranean region is a strategic region for the Italian foreign policy, and that's why the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs decided to launch this kind of initiative. And I think it's really an example of how we can support mediation and how we can support the participation of women, linking, let's say, these two aspects, the institutional aspect, which it's important because in order to bring a change, we need the political willingness and we need the political support. But at the same time, it brings the civil society aspect because in the end, we need also to have the views and the perspectives of women who are really on the ground and can share with us their expertise and their perspective also of the regional and local context. And this is something really valuable for our work, for our foreign policy, for our mediation efforts. Among these women, we have, let's say, different stories to tell. And maybe I can share some of them now with you, but I also invite you to have a look at our website where you can find the profiles of the different women mediators, but at the same time, you can also listen to some podcasts we decided to produce in order to really give visibility to the work these women are doing. But to give you an example, Irene Fellin was instrumental in establishing this network, and now she's the special representative at NATO for women, peace and security. We have among our women mediators, we have Widad Beshanamui, who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize together with other 3 people in 2015 in Tunisia, because she was instrumental in the adoption of the new constitution in her country. So she really worked a lot to create the basis of stability in her country. We have Edita, who was the only woman negotiating in the Balkans. We have Karma, a very dynamic Lebanese who is working in Lebanon let's say, to encourage the participation of women also the political level, so what we call the track 1.5. We have also women from Cyprus. You know, Cyprus is part of Europe, is part of the European Union, but it's a country which is still divided in its own territory, because one part is, let's say, is part of the European Union, but another part is still, let's say, related to Turkey. It's still not recognized, and which means that the island, an island within Europe, the European continent, is still divided by a border, and it's still witnessing a so-called frozen conflict. We have women from the northern Africa. We have women from Lebanon, and maybe Lebanon is a very interesting example, because we are talking about a country where we can say that now we have peace, in the sense that there is no more war, but at the same time, this is not automatically means that you have peace and stability. So there is a lot of work to do still there among the different communities, the different fractures which are still there within the societies. Today we have 60 women from 21 countries in the Mediterranean region. who are part of this network. Geographically, the network is very interesting because we are covering countries from the European Union, but also from the African region, from the Middle East, and from the Balkans. And if we look at what these women are doing, I think it can really show us the kind of contribution women can bring as actor of change. We are talking about mediation in a broader sense. Some of these women are involved in more formal processes, but most of them are involved at the local level in the local mediation efforts. For us, it's really important at the same time to underline the fact that local mediation is very much related to what happens at the regional level, at the international level. I mean, is one piece of, let's say, a broader mosaic, a broader puzzle, but it's a very important one, so it should not be neglected. And I think that this is more and more also the, let's say, the general feeling, and this is why today there are many attempts to support also the different efforts done at the local level. And I can again come back to this. Last point, I think it's important to underline very briefly the role of the networks of women mediators. As I was saying, we are not the only network of women mediators. In the last 7 years, different networks have been established around the world. The idea is to promote the work women are doing, and so to push for a higher participation of women at the formal tables, but at the same time to give visibility to what they are already doing, supporting the work they are already doing, because we think that this is this is really beneficial for the whole society. We are proud of the results, of course, we reached so far. I mean, we are bringing together different women. We are encouraging them to share their own experiences. We are supporting the work they are doing also through the establishment of local antennas. We are providing capacity building and training and networking opportunities. I think that the added value of these kind of networks are, first of all, related to their diversity, because they are bringing together different profiles, different women. It's also an intergenerational network. And so it's really enriching being part of this kind of network and having the possibility to share, have an exchange and share experience. Then there is this factor related to the, let's say, to the solidarity, to the sisterhood, to the empowerment that being part of a network can bring to women, further supporting the work they are doing. But lastly, I think it's this kind of network are really important because they facilitate the dialogue between different levels. I mean, putting together in dialogue and creating a bridge between the political and the institutional level from one side, and the civil society and the grassroots level from the other. And at the same time, putting in connection what happens at the local level, national, let's say, regional and international. And this is, for instance, the case if we look at the Mediterranean region. Again, this is a regional network because for us, the Mediterranean region as such plays a very important role in our foreign policy. But then, of course, you have the different specificity at local and national level. And then you have also different attempts of dialogue among countries, so cross-border, and in the end, you need to connect the different dots and also try to promote the synergies among what happens at the different levels, because what we are witnessing increasingly at the fact that we have more and more initiatives also dedicated to this kind of topics, but in the end, we need to foster synergies and to foster the correlation between the different initiatives if, let's say, our ultimate goal is the same, which is really having peace and stability for all. And now I think that these kind of networks, this collective voice that we are gathering through the networks can really be beneficial also to focus the attention of the international community on the current security crisis and challenges, which means trying to together to find possible solutions, bringing all the different energies around the table of men and women, of course, and bringing all the tools that we have at our disposal, starting from preventing diplomacy, starting from diplomacy as such, and starting from mediation. And again, now in Europe, I think that there is a whole different awareness also on this topic, because the war in Ukraine is reminding us that peace cannot be taken for granted, not even in our own continent. And this is probably creating the momentum for us to work more strategically all together in this field of peace mediation, and also highlighting the role of women. One last point I want to mention to you is a specific project that we are developing dedicated to Afghanistan. We started this project last year, before actually the fall of Kabul. And the idea was to create a task force of women who had held a high-level position in diplomacy, in negotiation, in foreign policy, with the idea to understand how can women contribute to peace and stability to the country. Of course, the context has changed a lot in the last 1.5 years. We know that now we are really losing all the progresses made in terms of women's rights. But at the same time, we feel again that it's really important to highlight and listen to women and what they have to tell us about the stability of their country, about how we can think about a different future for their own country. And so we are gathering different recommendations coming from these women experts, trying to create a bridge among those women and our own governments and regional actors. And again, the idea is to understand how we can work for the stabilization of the country, benefiting from the inputs and the perspectives of women, who now we are used to see again as victims, because we know what is happening in Afghanistan, but that we can see, in our opinion, also for the contribution again they can bring. So again, as actor of change, going back to the spirit of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. But again, we can further discuss about this. But this is a little bit to give you the idea of, let's say, what are the topics we are addressing, and what are the main initiatives which might be interesting for you. And I'm happy to see that Uppsala was sharing with you in the chat some links. Of course, you are welcome to visit our website, and at the end I will also leave you my email address so we can stay in touch in the future. But now I leave you the floor so you can just ask me further questions.
Thank you, Loredana. And that was such a brilliant beginning to the chat that we are going to start. The one thing which I take from what for the brilliant efforts you and your organization are doing in this area is that, yes, the participation of women in peace talks and peace agreements make it more likely for the agreements to sustain and get enforced. So it was such a brilliant aspect that you highlighted, and I am taking that with me, I think, from this session, and many more to come, obviously. So the floor is with Malakai and Mamta. You can go ahead and ask your questions, and everybody who is interested in asking a question, they can put their questions in the chat box, or they can raise their hand and ask the question directly. So Malakai, to you.
Thank you, Upasana, and thank you for the introduction, Loredana.
Thank you.
So I'll say this first. I'm kind of sad I don't get to join the sisterhood immediately as of right now. But even then, when it comes to peace building and international affairs, there are a few questions I want to ask. But the first thing I'll say is this. When it comes to mediation, it's interesting because it's a compilation of a lot of different people from different academic backgrounds, professional backgrounds, who come together and work towards peace building by promoting dialogue between people, between two, I guess, warring parties or participants in a mediation dialogue. But at the same time, upon becoming a mediator, there tends to be a similar mindset that you build, that you share with other mediators as well. So it's a case where, yeah, we get a lot of people in in the same job, but different things incentivize different people, yet they come to the same result. And what I wanted to ask you was regarding the women mediators that you work with, what incentivized them to become mediators in the first place, or to become engaged with the mediation process? And the reason I ask this is because even though there's more access to opportunities now to become a mediator or to do more things as a woman or as a minority in general, there also has to be that motivation and incentive to actually do it. Because me speaking as a young Black man in London, I'm quite driven to do the things that I want to do, mainly because of people I've seen or examples I've seen who maybe weren't Black, but I can see myself being there. But I see other people around me who are just like, well, yeah, the opportunity is there, but there's no incentive. So back to the question, what incentivized the women mediators around you to become mediators in the first place?
So I think that in the first place, it's really because they care of their country and their region. I mean, they're all women who are experiencing huge challenges in their own country. Sometimes they are already mediating without really being aware of it. I mean, mediating in the, in the daily life. And with us, so let's say coming closer to our network, they understand, first of all, the big contribution they are already bringing, but at the same time, they start a sort of journey with us, which means also getting inspired from other women. I think that here the role of women or of other mediators can be really important, really playing this role model. Sometimes we are facilitating this sort of sharing experience of mentoring experience. The mentoring process is really powerful because it means that if you are willing to do something for your country and to restore the peace and stability in your own country, you can try to understand from, let's say, another professional who has more experience than you, which kind of tools you can use. But I mean, for me, I think that the starting point is really the fact that you care about what happens around you and you want to play a role, to have a say, and you feel that you can somehow bring the difference. And then with our network, with our fellows, with our women mediators, we can try to support, this journey of awareness and try to provide some tools in order to be able really to further develop the mediation skills. We also had a sort of internal discussion about the mediation skills. We know that there are different certificates, you can get trained. We are also providing training and capacity building opportunities, but at the same time, it's something that it's also related to your own, let's say, personal behavior and character and characteristics. For instance, in order to be a mediator, you need to have the trust of your own community. This is a very important, let's say, aspect, and benefiting from this trust is not something that we can train, but it's something that you gain over the years. And this is something that we can find in all our mediators. And then again, if we look at what happens in Libya, in Syria, in these cases, of course, women were somehow forced to find their way and to find, solutions to try to face the different challenges. And in many cases, the horrible situation brought them to start thinking about different ways of eradicating the violence and trying to solve the fractures within their societies, and that's how they became closer to mediation. But then we have also cases such as Lebanon, where, as I was saying, it's not about being in a war, but it's about overcoming the fractures which are still part of the societies. And for instance, one of our mediators started her journey in mediation because she really wanted to let's say, promote the dialogue among different communities living in her own her own neighborhood. So she was witnessing a lot of violence just in her area, and she wanted to do something for that. And that's how she started to do mediation at the community level. This is a very interesting case because she is using arts and culture in order to bring the different communities around a same joint project. So they are involved, for instance, in theatre, how do you say it, in plays. So they play together a piece theater, or they need to build something together, and so they are together for a very specific, very concrete objective. But these from time to time, little by little, creates the basis for a dialogue, for a mutual understanding, and this is how she started, let's say, their journey. So she started a journey because she really wanted to bring a difference, even a small difference, and have an impact in her own community. And this, step by step, creates the premises and the basis for a much bigger work. And now she's doing this work in all the different parts of her country, in Lebanon, and now she's also dealing with with refugees from Syria, and little by little the work expands, and also with our support in terms of capacity building, in terms of funds, in terms of, again, of solidarity and empowerment and experience sharing, little by little, this work from being a very specific project in a small village in Lebanon, it became a project at a national level, at a regional level, involving women and men, because she's let's say, addressing the whole Lebanese societies, but addressing also people on the move, also people internally displaced, refugees. So I mean, but again, the starting point is what happens in your own context, and the willingness to bring the difference and to think about alternative solutions, peaceful solutions. And then you need, of course, to be probably accompanied by a process in order to gain the tools, the access also to the different stakeholders, the support, in order to continue the whole process.
Yeah, I'd like to say this before Mamta can ask her questions. Well, first of all, I find that extremely admirable, to start from so small, like from a village point, to expanding it and expanding it and expanding it. And I think the reason why I was able to expand so easily is mainly because I can't think of anybody in the world who doesn't like to be heard by other people. And so upon expressing some empathy for other people or listening to their issues or troubles, that already opens up the dialogue to some kind of peace talks. And as you were speaking, I can tell that most people involved in peace building efforts, mediators and yourself alike, the foundation is usually, one, the empathy, and two, the proactivity to work upon the empathy as well. It's not just, oh, something's happening over there, that's really sad. It's, something's happening, I can do something to help stop it or prevent it, let me act. And I think that's what your organization is definitely helping with. So yeah, thank you for answering the question. I'll move on to
Thank you. And empathy, of course, is a crucial element in the whole process. I was referring mainly to women who are really witnessing in their daily life, the consequences of war, of instability, of global challenges. But of course, in our cases, is really feeling that what happens in the region also affects us. I mean, we do not have a war in Italy at the moment, but what happens around us, it's really part of us. I mean, it's about empathy, but it's also about seeing what happens in the world as so much interrelated, because we know that we are interconnected, and what happens in the region, what happens in a part of the globe also affects us. So in the end, we are all part of the same picture. So it's empathy, but it's also, being feeling that we are all interconnected in a way.
That's very well said, Loredana. Thank you for sharing that. Mamta, if you allow, before we move to the next question, Rajiv has a question he wants to ask. So
Sure.
Rajiv, if you want to go ahead with your question. You're on mute. So I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Okay, yep, thank you. Loredana and Accords International, I think, you women have doing some wonderful job. So my congratulations to
Thank
to everyone, especially women, those who have taken this step. So Loredana, you mentioned about the stats of the peace accords or the agreements which have happened, where women have been involved to be more sustainable, to have lasted longer. Could you? I mean, I'm a male, so could you share some characteristics of, I can't become a female now. So could I learn from you as to what sort of characteristics could one imbibe, or could one aspire to have, so that one could possibly become more successful in reaching those more sustainable agreements?
So when we talk about more sustainable agreements, we usually refer to agreements which are reflecting the different needs and perspective of the society. So if you have, let's say, diversity around the table, this means that you can really take into consideration, the different the different aspects of the society. And so this is why when women are there, they can also highlight what are the needs of women, and women can be really part of the reconstruction of the society. So that's why usually having more women brings, let's say, more sustainability. But then if we think about women, we know that, let's say, usually women tend to have some characteristics, such as empathy, such as a longer term vision, such as this willingness also to always to find a sort of dialogue also in the daily life. But I would not say that women are always bringing this kind of characteristics, because I think that this would be also another stereotype. I mean, we are also very different, and so this is not a guarantee, but if a woman is at the table and she's bringing a gender perspective, which means that she's bringing the needs of women, this is really enriching and allowing us to have a more diverse dialogue. So this is really important. So what makes sustainable a peace agreement is the fact that you are embracing the diversity of the society. Otherwise, you end up with an agreement which is not reflecting a part of the society, and this means that it's very difficult to keep this kind of agreement alive over the years, because simply you are not taking into consideration some important aspects of it. So this is, let's say, it's very basic, but in the end, it's what really makes the difference. And inclusivity and diversity are really making the difference around the table when we need to discuss the agreements for the future of our societies.
Yeah. May I just point out to you that there was an Indian civil servant many years ago. She asked a question to a very well-known celebrity from the Indian cinema. And the question which she asked, I could, if you allow me, I could ask the same question to you. What is the opposite of patriarchal society? What is the opposite of patriarchal society?
So the opposite of a patriarchal society should be an inclusive society. I mean, this is what we are trying to achieve. We are not trying to achieve, the opposite of a patriarchal society. We are trying to overcome a patriarchal society in order to have a more inclusive society where we can all be together, we can all bring our own perspectives and diversity. And this should be reflected in the way we build our societies,
Yep. No, I mean, that's where, that celebrity film actor, he got caught on the wrong foot. And he said, I mean, you are absolutely right. I mean, the default response by, I think, majority of us would be matriarchal society, but that's not the correct answer. So often, I think, we can get drawn into making the opposite of a non-inclusive society by going to the other side of making it non-inclusive society as well.
Exactly.
So there could be tendency.
Yeah, I completely get your point, also because there is a tendency then to do, also in our cases, to do things just among women, or to have, panel debates just with women, excluding men. And I think that this is not the right answer. As you said, this is creating, again, a non-inclusive society. So what we are aiming at is really working together and joining, let's say, our efforts, competencies, views, knowledge, expertise as men and women, because we are working for the same objective. So it's really a joint effort of men and women. It's not about creating a war of sexes or having just women or just men. So not having a matriarchy or a patriarchy, but just an inclusive society.
No, I mean,
Thank
incidentally, Loredana, I'm in the
thank
same
you.
zone as you are.
Yeah.
I'm in
Okay.
the same country as you are.
Are you in Italy?
No, are you in Italy?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm in near London.
Okay.
Okay.
But
No,
we are on the same page. Yes, we have the same way of thinking.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Rajiv. I think it was a brilliant discussion there. I think Mamta's question will relate to the point that we have just discussed. So Chandrika, will come to you after Mamta, if you don't mind. Mamta, can you please ask your question?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. First of all, I totally agree with you on inclusive society. And jumping to the next question, what do you think about multiculturalism in mediation?
I think this is a very important aspect, again, because if we want to have diversity and a rich debate, I think that this is really the key. Also, if I look at our Mediterranean Women Mediators Network, it's really a multicultural and also multi-generational network. I think that this is also an important aspect because we are creating more and more fractures among the different generations. And what we need to do is really to bring, the different aspects within mediation. And then mediation is in many cases also an effort to bring together the different cultures within the same society. I was referring to Lebanon before, which has 18 religious community in its own country, a small country. We are working now with Afghan women and Afghanistan, and again also there are so many different minorities and cultural groups. And if we want to have let's say a truly a true mediation effort, and if we want to really foster the dialogue, we need the different views, which means also bringing around the table the different cultures. So when I think and speak about inclusivity and diversity, I think that this is also part of the picture. It's not just about women, it's also about bringing the different cultures and the different communities and the different minorities around the table, because each of them can show us, can tell us what are the needs to be addressed, what are the different interests, and can help us understanding what's the common ground to create the dialogue. So thank you for your question. It's definitely an important part of our
Yes.
work.
Yeah, together we can reach to a better conclusion.
Indeed.
Mamta, if you allow me, I just want to add to that, Loredana, on a lighter note, since we're talking about multiculturalism and we're talking about peace agreements, have you witnessed any, or maybe if you would like to discuss some incident in which you have observed the multicultural aspect of the people sitting on the table, or maybe some incident in which you have witnessed a mediation proceeding where you think that yes, there were multiple cultures working together there, or some interesting incident that you would want to share here?
Yes. So first of all, so if I look at the Mediterranean region, again, Lebanon is a very interesting case, but also Cyprus. I mean, we have people living on the same island with different cultural and religious background. And for us, it's very interesting the fact that women from the two different sides of Cyprus are part of our own network. So they have the possibility to, let's say, to test, their dialogue, and to foster their dialogue inside our network and throughout our activities. We are dealing also, for instance, with women from Israel and Palestine. So again, this is a very sensitive political dossier. Now we are working with Afghanistan, as I was mentioning. Last week, we had a very interesting meeting here in Italy at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This was the opportunity for us to bring the women, the Afghan women leader who were part of our task force. Some of them were negotiators at the Doha peace process. So they were involved in a concrete peace dialogue effort, even if we know that this was not so successful. But they are now part of this exercise that we are trying to do, and we try to connect those women with the ministry. What was, let's say, at the beginning a little bit frustrating, but then we overcame the challenge, is the fact that, as I was mentioning, in Afghanistan there are different communities and minorities, and so some of the minorities approached us, and they felt they were not part of this process, and they felt they were put aside. So they were telling us, these women are not representing us because they are not part of our minorities. But in the end, the message that we managed to bring was a message again of inclusivity. So first of all, we highlighted the fact that sometimes we have some women on the front line or some mediators on the front line, and they are, let's say, doing the job, trying to put together the different communities. So for us, it was important to have some women who are already well recognized and benefit from the trust of their own communities. And this was, let's say, a starting point for us to open some doors and to amplify the message they can bring. But this was just a starting point, because our aim was really, and is still, to bring the diversity of the society. And this is why now we are creating new bridges with the different communities. In this case, if we look at Afghanistan, there is also a huge fracture between women who are still in the country and women who are in the diaspora. So there is a sort of resentment against women who left the country. So who is still in Afghanistan feels that that they are the ones suffering. They are the ones to be listened, because they are the ones still there. And for us, it was really in the first year of our work, the huge, let's say, challenge and the huge work to do was really to reconcile the fractures among the same community of Afghan women. So putting together women from the diaspora, women from Afghanistan, women from the different cultural communities and with the different backgrounds, because for us it was really important to give this sense of unity. I mean, in facing and in front of such huge challenges and such violations of human rights, there's no room for further divisions. What we need to do is to put together our efforts and our voices and to try to bring the difference. And this was the message that we tried to, to bring. It was not easy. So as I was saying, even some weeks ago at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when not all the different communities were represented, we got some, we were criticized in a way from some communities, but in the end, they understood that this was, let's say, for a good cause. So we were just trying to open some doors to let everybody in. And I think this is also part of what I was telling before about the gender perspective. It's not just about having women there, but having women there who are opening the space for other women. And this is the same for, of course, when it comes to mediation. I mean, having somebody who is opening the door in order to enrich the debate and reach the number of people represented around the table and in a discussion.
I think I totally agree with you there, Loredana. And the concept of cultural relativism and universalism, I think that's a brilliant way of associating gender, the role that gender plays there in diversity with cultural relativism. And I think all these things are quite relevant in Indian context as well, because we are a country of multiple religions, multiple castes, multiple languages. So I think that's a very interesting discussion that we just had. And AcIn International, we have just launched a training in mediation, but that is not for international cross-border mediation in terms of peace talks, but it is with regards to commercial mediation, family mediation, domestic mediation. So there is one thing which I wanted to ask from you was that even we have agreements in maybe a commercial contractual mediation proceeding. And if there is a peace talk going on, and there is also a peace agreement, but we have Singapore Convention for enforcement of commercial mediation agreements, for example. Sometimes an agreement which is arrived at between the parties at a domestic level, it becomes a court decree or a conciliation award and gets enforced. So what are the ways or mechanisms or the guiding rules for in such international peace agreements, which are the result of international mediation, the mediation that we are talking about here, how these peace agreements, sustainable peace agreements, get enforced, or maybe the parties do not divert from what they have agreed?
Indeed, I think that in the international sphere, let's say, it's a lot about the role of the international community. I mean, it's about UN, it's about regional global actors, it's about the different countries which are involved in a peace mediation. Because if we look at the international sphere, international arena, mediators can be individuals. This happens in just, let's say, in just a few cases, but in most of the cases, there are countries, there are regional organizations, there are international organizations. And this means that they have an active role in supporting the mediation or even leading the mediation process. And this means that it's about, entrusting the mediator. It's about the work mediators are doing. And in the end, it's about creating the political willingness, to follow and to respect an agreement. So it's not just about what kind of consequences you can have from a legal point of view. It's mainly about what kind of consequences you can have in terms of reputation, in terms of, of political position, in terms of what kind of role you can play within the different international organizations. Because we know that when countries are still, in such are still affected by conflicts, are still affected by protracted violence, they cannot play an active role in the international community. And I think that this is also, let's say, something that that is part of the political considerations. But in the end, in this case, it's really a lot about having, so setting the premises for peace, but then having the political willingness, because this is what you need in order to, let's say, to consolidate the achievements. So it's a little bit more complex because there are different actors, first of all, involved. And then because it's a huge role is played by the political willingness and the role of the state within the international community.
I totally agree with that. I think that is a more sustainable agreement that we are talking about.
Indeed.
So
and then you have also different, way of leveraging. I mean, for instance, if I look at the Balkans in Europe, of course, the European Union plays an important role supporting or leading the mediation efforts. The Balkans are all willing to join the European Union, and this is an important leverage that the European Union can use in order to foster the stability, and the sustainability of the agreements in the region. And I mean, these can be applied in different scenarios, but now I'm looking at the Balkans because they are just here next door.
All right. I have so many things to say, but I think since we have already crossed the time that we asked you to give us, Loredana, if you permit us 7 to 8 minutes more, then we can take 3 questions, one from Malakai, one from Mamta, and one from Chandrika, because she had already, I hope Chandrika is still with us. Chandrika, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to ask your question, please?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Loredana, ma'am.
Thank you.
Actually, this was a like we are the pro-feminist. Like we can say that this international where women get the chance to be a mediator in a international peace and security. So, ma'am, I have a question regarding like, ma'am, what are the challenges faced by the woman to be a mediator in the international peace and security? Because, ma'am, the male dominance is always there. That sir was saying that a patriarchal society, but it's there. And how a woman getting the like coming in a front and taking a seat of that to be a mediator? How, ma'am? What are the challenges, ma'am, faced by the mediator? Like,
all right. I hope you got the question, Loredana.
Yes.
Think, yeah.
So what are the challenges facing women mediators? Okay, so I think that the challenges are still, let's say, a lot. So many challenges hampering a deeper involvement of women in mediation processes. I think that first of all, and mostly is about mindset, culture, mentality. Our friend before was talking about patriarchal societies. Biases. I mean, it's about not thinking of women as possible mediators or possible decision makers. And this is something that, of course, we need to overcome, but it takes time, because when it comes to culture and mindset and mentality, of course, it takes time, and it starts everything from education, from school, from disseminating a different also narrative. So if you start showcasing more and more the stories of women and the contribution they are bringing, this can help also to promote a different narrative about the role women can play. And this is something that, for instance, we are trying to do with our network. So also trying to change a little bit the narrative about women. And then I think that this is the participation of women in mediation is also affected by the lack of unequal presence of women at leading position, generally speaking. I mean, if you don't have enough women represented in politics, in decision-making places, in economics, in international affairs, this of course is reflected also in women in mediation, especially when it comes to high-level nomination processes, because you tend to nominate people for mediation at high-level formal peace processes who have already an important and established background, for instance, in international organizations, in politics. So in the end, it's like we are perpetrating the inequality because you don't have enough women in all the different positions. And then, of course, you don't have enough women in mediation. And then I think that there's a lack of understanding that the unequal presence of women in mediation, it's something that affects all of us. As I was saying at the beginning, it's not just about gender equality. We should not have more women just because it's important for gender equality. We should have more women understanding that this is really beneficial for the whole society, for the security and the peace of the whole society. And then there is, as I was another aspect that I was raising before, is also an issue of political willingness. So I think that now there is more awareness about the importance of having more women also involved in the different phases of peace, which means also in peace mediation. But at the same time, all the declarations and words are still not translated into reality, because in order to translate these commitments and declarations and political statements in reality, we need the political willingness to advance, the agenda and to really foster the participation of women. This means, for instance, providing funds to support what they are already doing at the local level, highlighting and showcasing also in terms of narrative what they are doing, and then nominating more women when it comes to formal processes, because we know that in most of the cases formal processes are related to to nomination, and so it means that some governments and some countries and some regional actors should push more in order to have women in high-level positions. We know that we have qualified women. At the same time, we can still work on the capacity building. We can still train more women to be there. But what we really need to do is to create the spaces for them to play their role. Because otherwise, what we are experiencing now, for instance, with our network, is the fact that we already have trained and experienced women. And what we are really missing is to give them a chance to show what they can do and to have their voices heard. And so there are different challenges still there for women, but we are trying, let's say, to work on the different aspects. One aspect that I also want to mention is the protection. I mean, when we are encouraging women to participate, we need to be aware also of the fact that these should come together with protection. So women should be enabled in a secure environment to participate. And this is not always the case. So sometimes what we are doing is pushing women to come up and to raise their voice and to participate. But if we are not able also to protect, for instance, peace builders, activists, we are really also, let's say, creating the opposite effect, because who is there and who is showing up and who is participating in the end is also suffering and risking its own life. So we always need to look at participation, enhancing the participation of women, to look at it, providing also all the protection is needed, because we know that peace builders and women activists around the world are exposed to higher risks because of their work, but also because they are women. And this is the case also for women mediators at local level. And so this is why we need political willingness and also political and concrete policies, initiatives in order to protect those women. So I think that this is also an important aspect. So sometimes women are not taking the lead because they are afraid of doing so. I mean, if the environment is not enabling them, is not a supporting environment, it's not that easy, especially in very complex countries and contexts.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you there, Loredana. And sometimes the requirement of adding an extra layer of security sometimes work against promoting women in this circle as mediators. But I think one needs to understand that this is not only in case of women, even in case of male mediators or male peace workers, it is that added layer of security is required anyways.
Yeah, so, it's always a risky position. Yes. I mean, so because we are talking about countries in war, countries where there is violence, countries which are facing huge challenges. So of course, you know, when you try to bring the difference, you are also exposed to higher risk. So of course, we need to address also these aspects.
And I'm so appreciative of the fact that, yes, networking and appointments of mediators for such roles, networking is a very important aspect. And we have also shared the link of a conflict resolution WhatsApp group in the chat, that we are trying to build a network of conflict resolution professionals coming up from India, restorative justice professionals coming up from UK, US. So there are we are creating that group where we can discuss about these things. So we have shared the link in the chat box if somebody wants to join that group. Other than that, I think let me go to Malakai if time permits us. Malakai, can you be brief and just shoot? Thank you.
Definitely. So rather than asking a question, I will talk about an observation that I just had. So in relation to security and peace building, of course, that's always been on my mind ever since I was younger and ever since I looked into diplomacy and mediation, because most peace builders pretty much have a target on their back. And when there is an achievement that is achieved by peace builders, you don't usually see it in the news. You only see a peace builder in the news when they either get assassinated or something. So it's not exactly the best reputation for a safe, cushy job. But I think that's the downside of having such an impactful job in itself. And when it comes to mediation in general, it's kind of funny because that kind of danger and risk kind of drives me towards trying to end the conflict in the first place. But upon you talking about the requirements for more security and safety, especially for women, that didn't really click in my mind until you just mentioned it. So I think when it comes to these kinds of dialogues and these topics is, well, as we can already see in this talk, you're already raising awareness of what maybe an average man like myself might not consider when it comes to a woman's perspective. So in terms of having the gendered perspective at the table, well, this is a clear example of it in action. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that gender perspective can be applied if we look at all the global challenges. I think that you mentioned that you also have a background in migration.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm working a lot on migration. And for instance, if you look at migration from a gender perspective, you can see that the whole experience of migration affects women in a different way. So from the beginning, so the starting of the starting point of the migration experience could be something that affects women, so related to to gender equality, to violation of women's rights, etc. But then, of course, the journey itself, it's different from a woman perspective, because they are exposed to different risks and violence around the journey. And then you can look at women once they are arrived in the host society, let's say, in a different way. First of all, they are victims in a double way because they are migrants and they are women, and we know that this is not helpful in terms of integrating in the job market, etc. But here I would like to look also at the other side of the coin, as we do with women in conflict, and look also at the huge role that women play for the integration in the host societies. Because if we look at the role played by mothers, for instance, in their own families, I mean, it's a huge role in terms of integration in the new society. And so, again, you can look at women as victims, but you can look at women also as actors. So the agency of women and how they can play this agency for the whole integration process in the new society. But this is, again, with climate, with all the challenges, you can always try to apply a different lens in order to understand the different perspectives, the different needs, and how the challenges affect in a different way women and men.
Loredana, could I just add on to that quickly as well?
Yes.
When it comes to approaching the challenges and being proactive, I think we all have to understand that there's going to be an element of risk to it. And I think even though that may be like a disincentive to quite a lot of people, I think it's definitely the reality of the kind of jobs that we want to do. Like, if you want to end war, then you're going to have to get involved in the conflict somehow. So there's going to be risk there, but the fact that there are multiple people doing it all at once means that I think it makes it a bit safer than if it was just you doing it alone. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Malakai. Mamta, I think we can end with your question. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So as you discussed that women are facing a lot of challenge. So what is your vision of mediation in international security and peace, and how an increasing role can be played by women?
Okay, this is like it's the perfect final question. So I think when it comes to mediation in international affairs, I think that the scope of mediation in international affairs is huge. Because it's not only about solving a conflict once it's there, it's also and mostly about preserving peace and preventing conflicts. And here mediation can really take place in different shapes. We were talking about tracks, so at grassroots level, track 2, but also the formal and political level. But it can be, let's say, mediation can be played by different actors. And in the end, I think it's also important to connect all the different levels. So we are going towards a multi-track approach, towards local mediation, which is part of the bigger picture of a regional and international effort, because in the end, they are all, let's say, going towards the same objective, which is, again, peace and security. So I think that the scope of mediation in international affairs is huge, because it's about conflict prevention, it's about managing conflict crisis, it's about overcoming the different crises all over the world. And the role played by mediation and by mediators, it's crucial. In an international dispute, it really makes the difference. And so it's important to invest more in mediation and to raise the awareness on the importance of finding peaceful solutions to conflict, but also the importance of creating the premises for peace, which is something that sometimes we are taking for granted and we are not valuing enough. And on the contrary, we should really recognize the importance of this work and the importance of people doing this kind of work. If I look at women, I think that women have a huge role to play. Again, they are already contributing to peace and stability all over the world. We just need to look and to tell those stories. We just need to support those women and empower them and give them more spaces to work and make them feel listened. But at the same time, we need to do definitely more in order to bring more women at the formal peace tables, and more generally speaking, at the tables where decisions are making. When decisions are made for our own future and for our own societies, it's really important to bring the diversity around the table and to come up with an inclusive, let's say, agreement, because this is the only way to really ensure that what we agree is sustainable and can last over the years. This means that we need to, let's say, to work more and to foster our efforts for mediation on one side, but also for more women, for the participation of more women in mediation. I think that we have many tools now from a legal point of view. We have, as I was mentioning, the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. So we have the legal framework at international level, at regional and national level. We have some tools such as the networks of women mediators. But again, what we need is to push for more political willingness and awareness. And in the end, we need to push for more concrete space. At the same time, I think that initiatives like these are really important because of, first of all, we can, let's say, have an exchange and raise our awareness on the different aspects. And because I really believe in synergies. This is also the idea a little bit behind a network, the idea of working in synergy and really try to make the difference together. And here I think that we can combine different backgrounds and different perspectives, and this can help us also to understand how we could work together, let's say again, for the same cause. I know that you are working on different aspects of mediation, so it's the international let's say arena piece. It's not the only one, but I hope that today we had the chance to, let's say, to focus a little bit more on these and also to raise your curiosity if this is not your field of interest. And again, I think that there are a lot of potentialities that can still be explored, but now I feel there is a momentum. So also at the political level, there is more awareness, and we can try maybe to build on that in order to achieve some more concrete results and in order to move forward from words and declarations to reality and concrete implementation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Loredana. And I have connected, there are many people, for example, I was discussing with Malakai, he is interested in mediation and international affairs. Mamta is interested in such endeavors. So maybe as we discussed, we can meet again in the month of January, and I have already connected all of you. We can meet again and discuss this and take it further, because cross-border mediation and peace talks and mediation and international security is definitely a very new area for Indian audience. So in our participants, we have, for example, Rajiv, Sangeeta. They are seasoned, experienced mediators, and it is quite exciting that there is a lot of inquisitiveness when it comes to a new area where mediation can be impactful. So it might be new for us, but for you who has been working in this area for the past so many years, we still have a lot to learn from your network and you. So thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
So also for me, it's very interesting to have this kind of exchange with you. And I really thank you for this opportunity. And definitely I'm willing and available and glad to meet you again in January. Maybe we can invite also some of our mediators so they can share their own stories. And then we can also understand if there is room for, for cooperation also on a practical level. In the past, we worked with Indonesia, because Indonesia started Southeast Asian network of women mediators. So they are covering the the countries in the area. But I know that India is not part of any regional network of women mediators that I was mentioning. So definitely, I think there is room to work together, and not only with women. Again, we are inclusive.
Yeah, and we also, the Accord International is training mediators, and we take mediation not as another added certificate in your profile, but it's a life skill that we talk mediation in terms of a life skill. So regarding the training, we are going to send an email to all of you who have given us their email ID and are registered with us. And Loredana, I'll send about the mediation training. I'll send the details to you as well. So it was lovely talking to you. Thank you, Malakai, for giving us your time. Thank you, Mamta, for asking such brilliant questions. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I know we took 30 minutes more of yours, Loredana, and I know how difficult it is in your busy schedule.
I was really happy to be with you. I put my email in the chat, and then please share with me what you wrote down in the chat, because I was not able to copy all the links and the information.
Definitely, we will definitely send you a detailed email regarding that. Akansha was saying something.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Akansha, were you saying something?
I was just saying that we would definitely share the link. And my takeaway, especially Loredana, from you is that there is no room for further divisions. So mediation is what we need to have a more inclusive and cooperative society worldwide. So thank you for sharing that, Loredana, with us.
Thank you.
So if
thank
there
you so
is
much.
a question, we can.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. So if everybody allows, I'll be ending the meeting here. Thank you, Loredana, once again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Have a good day.
Namaste. Bye-bye.
We can stop the recording and
yeah. So I'm going to end the meeting here, Akansha. All right, everybody, good night. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Thank you, Malakai. Thank you, Mamta. Bye-bye.